Okay, so we're going to look at indicative tenses here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to take note of is that indicative tenses, the basic moods of assertion, indicate tense in relation to what we're going to call the true present, that is the present of the speaker or writer. Okay? The reason we're going through this is to distinguish them from oblique moods, which only indicate tense in relation to some other verb. So indicative verbs have what we call absolute tense. Oblique moods have what we call relative tense. Okay? So the indicative tenses are things that you already know. That's the present, the perfect, the imperfect, the pluperfect, the future, and the future perfect. The oblique moods are subjunctives, participles, and infinitives. Okay? So we're going to talk about the indicative moods here. Now, the present tense indicates continuous action and occurs at the same time as the speaker or writer. If I use the present tense, it's present to me. Okay? So here's an example from Caesar. At the time in which Caesar is writing, the Nervii are still not pursuing cavalry, but foot soldiers. So he writes in the present tense. For at this time they do not pursue this matter, that is, cavalry, but whatever they are able, they are strong in foot soldiers. So that's present in respect to Caesar as he's writing, not in respect to us. There's also something called the historical present, which is a mode of narration. We use this in English. So I walk into the Acme, right? And who do I see there but Lindsay Lohan or Pete Sampras or whoever, right? That is obviously something that took place in the past. Actually, never, but if it were true, it took place in the past. But the speaker is using the present tense for vividness. Caesar does this as well. Right? With these things having been known, he sends forth, or sends ahead, scouts and centurions to choose a suitable place for the camp. Okay? That historical present makes the narration more vivid. So that's the present tense, contemporaneous with the speaker, or a historical present. The imperfect tense is like the present, except that it conveys continuous or habitual action in the past. So the present is continuous in the present, the imperfect in the past. Okay? Really, two ways of doing this. Was verbing, the subject was verbing, or the subject used to verb or would verb. The first tells you continuous action, and the second, habitual action. You can get this wrong. So, if you were to say, the enemy used to hide themselves in secret within those woods, you would be wrong. The enemy were holding themselves within those woods. But Caesar was approaching, and when he was, the enemy were there. It's not what the enemy did for entertainment every Sunday. Okay? That's the imperfect. The perfect tenses convey completed action. Okay? There are three perfect tenses: the perfect, the pluperfect, and the future perfect. The perfect tense has completed action in respect to the present. So, you can say the subject verbed, that's what we call the simple past, or the subject has verbed, which we call the present perfect. Did verb is something we should really avoid. Usually, only, again, one of these is right. Okay. The simple past is an action contained in the past, which is not redounding on the present. The present perfect has an immediate impact on the present. So, here we say that they came at night to the Nervii and showed to them that a great number of baggage were proceeding between the individual legions. Right? They came to the Nervii at night, not they have come to the Nervii at night. Right? If you say they have come to the Nervii at night and are there now, that's what would be implied. But this is some story, it's completely over, it's contained in the past, it's done. Okay, so the perfect is completed in respect to the present. The pluperfect is completed in respect to something in the past. The future perfect is completed in respect to the future. So, here we have a pluperfect. nam quod hostibus apropinquabat consuetudine sua caesar sex legionis expeditas ducebat post eas totius exercitus impedimenta collocarat, etc. Okay, so the imperfect tense verbs here, because he was approaching the enemy, he was leading 6 light-armed legions, give a kind of baseline. Those pluperfects, collocarat, happen before those imperfects. So he was leading the light-armed legions. Behind them he had already beforehand gathered the baggage of the whole army. All right? And the legions which had been enrolled most recently, that was even before the gathering, I'm sure, were bringing up the rear. Future perfect, if you like, we can say si id aedificoa verimus venient. If we will have built it, they will come. Here, the baseline is the future time of venient, and aedifico verimus is completed before the coming. So you have to finish the football stadium, or no, baseball stadium, before the people start coming. That's what's being implied there. Okay, so here's a little timeline and a summary of my point, which is that verbs in the indicative mood delineate time in respect to the present of the writer or speaker, the true present. Okay, so there's the present of the speaker, and the other tenses next to it. The perfect, imperfect, and future are one step removed from the present of the speaker. That is, they are directly related to it. Right? The pluperfect and future perfect are 2 steps removed, because the pluperfect relates to the perfect or imperfect, the future perfect to the future, which then relates back to the true present. So that is how absolute tense works, as opposed to relative tense, which I will examine in my presentation on oblique moods.